In this video, I'm going to show you a simple, easy way to layer MIDI sounds as you're playing and recording them, and then we're going to get into editing, actually editing the MIDI events contained within these regions. I'm going to start by shift-clicking on our drum regions and holding down Option and dragging them in order to copy them. I'm going to continue our arrangement now and add another 8 bars of that pattern on. Now I've loaded in an electric guitar sound on a new channel strip here, and it's record enabled and ready to be recorded. Now I'm going to also hit the R button on the bass track. Now when I play the sound, I'm going to hear both at the same time. An interesting way of getting sounds layered. I'm going to record and watch what happens. Alright, you'll see that Logic has created 2 regions now. It's placed a region on the Guitar Crunch track and named it Guitar Crunch, as we'd expect, but there's another region here as well, named in italic. Now the italic naming indicates that this region is an alias, meaning that this contains all the data. You'll recall in one of the earlier videos, we mentioned that a MIDI region doesn't actually contain any sound, it's a container for MIDI notes. So it contains MIDI events, in this case notes, and this is an alias. So if I edit any of the notes in this region, this will be updated because it's an alias pointing to what's contained in here, kind of like the way aliases work in the regular Mac OS. So now that we have these parts laid down, we're going to get into editing the actual notes contained within this region. Now there are a number of different MIDI editors available in Logic and a number of different ways to get into them. I can start by double-clicking on the MIDI region, and that'll open up the score editor by default. Now this is set in the preferences what the default behavior is and which MIDI editor you want to be opened on double-clicking the region. We can get to the preferences here. I'm going to go to General, and on the second tab under Editing, double-clicking a MIDI region opens, and by default it's Score, but you can select any of the other MIDI editors. So that's one way of getting into the score editor. We can also close it and open it via this Score button at the bottom. So when you click that, it'll display the contents of the selected region or regions. And we can also get to it in a standalone window by click holding and dragging it into a tear-off window like this. And then we can freely resize it as a separate standalone window if we want. So that way it's not docked to the bottom of the Arrange window. There's a key command to toggle this open or closed, and that's N. That'll open and close the score window. And we can also get to it from under the window menu, Score or Command 3. And that'll open the standalone version of it. So MIDI editors can be opened either docked at the bottom here or in standalone versions. The standalone versions can be torn off from here by click holding and dragging or by opening them from under the window menu or the equivalent key command. So that's the score editor for editing a notation type of display. You can also close it, by the way, by taking the resize handle here and dragging it down to the bottom like that. Next we have the piano roll editor, and that's opened and closed by the key command P. P for piano roll. The score editor is N. N for score. So P for the piano roll editor, and this gives us a horizontal representation of the notes, graphic representation like that. We're going to work with that in a moment. And you can also get to that by the menu up here, piano roll. Same thing as the score. It'll open a standalone window, and you can of course tear off the standalone version like that as well. P for piano roll. Next we have the Hyper Editor, and the default key command to open this is Y. Y for Hyper Editor. And this offers another display of the MIDI event information. It's vertical beams. We can edit controller data or notes in here. We'll look at it for drum editing in another video. But Y toggles the Hyper Editor open. The next MIDI editor is under the Lists menu here, the Event List. Go to Lists, and the first tab is Event, and this offers us a numeric readout of all the numeric data of the MIDI events. We can edit or alter any of them numerically here in this window. And the key command to toggle that open or closed is E. E for Event List. Let's look at the piano roll for now. I'm going to hit P, and we can resize this by grabbing the resize handles. And we can move our playhead, and we'll see the notes here. So you see horizontal representations of the notes. Now the horizontal placement of the note events indicate their position in the timeline, the bar, the beat, and the subdivision. It displays their positioning within the region and within the project. Like for example, we see here we're at bar 12. This indicates that it's right at bar 12 and it's contained within this region, but bar 12 in the whole arrangement. And you can click on the notes and hear the output in any of these MIDI editors, and that can be toggled on or off with this out button. In case you're working with long sustained notes, you might want that where you don't want to hear the notes. For now, we're going to leave it on, so MIDI out is enabled, and we'll hear the notes. So the placement indicates the position in the timeline. Now the vertical placement of the notes indicates the pitch. So the higher up they are, the higher the pitch, and the lower they are, the lower the pitch. We see a piano keyboard here representing the pitches, so I can see that this is a C. Now, you can zoom the contents of the piano roll editor with the same key commands that you can in the main area of the arrange window. I'm going to use Option and Control with the up and down arrow keys, and we can zoom like that to see more or less of the data, and we can zoom horizontally like that as well. So let's work fairly large right now, because we're going to get into editing some of the data. Now, you're also going to see the length of the rectangle is different for each of the notes. Now, that's proportional to the note event length. So the longer this rectangle is, the longer the note is, and the shorter the rectangle is, the shorter the note is. I can click here and hit play. So do-do-do-dee, do-do-dee. So these long ones are longer and the short ones are shorter. Now you'll also notice that some of these horizontal blocks are different colors, and they have a line running through them. Well, the color of the horizontal line through these notes represents the velocity, or how hard they were played. Now, velocity works on a scale of 0 to 127, and they change colors depending what zone in that range that they're in. So, different colors for different velocities. So this is an overview of how the piano roll editor works. Stay tuned. In the next video, we're going to actually get into editing some of the notes. See you soon.